Morning, Gene.
So we're just learning this into our live now from Fox Studios. For those that might be confused about who Michael Cohen is and what his relation is to the hush money trial, if you could catch us up, please.
Well, if you've been living under a rock, Michael Cohen is Trump's self-proclaimed fixer. If you believe Hope Hicks last week, she says he's Mr. Fix It because he's fixing his own problems that he made. But he's Trump's personal lawyer, and he is the star of this show. In the words of Dallas Cowboy legend, because I'm in Dallas, Terrell Owens, get your popcorn ready. This is what the entire show is about. The first third of the Trump money, hush money trial was or is about the motive. Why was the Trump campaign concerned about this? That's what the prosecution is trying to lay out. They did that in the first third. They called several witnesses, David Pecker from the National Enquirer about the catch and kill, trying to set the whole thing up about how the Trump campaign was in disarray because of the current affair tape. The last 2 weeks, they spent talking, or last week or so, they spent talking the money trail, where the money's going, why the numbers are there. The only thing that none of that could do was put Donald Trump's thumbprint on a crime. Only Michael Cohen can do that. And that's what we're going to see, sounds like, beginning next Monday. And we should see some fireworks.
The question now, Jeremy, will this help or hinder the former president? As we know, he's dealing with a lot with the gag orders, with the hush money trial, with Stormy Daniels. Will this help him or hinder him?
This is his opportunity, really, because in this case has been exclusively, in many ways, about Michael Cohen's credibility. And the prosecution has taken the approach of they could have called Michael Cohen first. They could have called him somewhere in the middle. But what they've done here, what their strategy is that they're going to paper cut and paper cut and paper cut Donald Trump with all of these other witnesses, all of them incrementally making Michael Cohen more credible and more credible and more credible. And it's been frustrating for the Trump team because they can't really land solid punches against these accountants, against some of the money trail people. But they can try to do that with Michael Cohen. So it is an opportunity for them to basically say, look, this guy went rogue. This guy was doing this all on his own. He was Mr. Fix It. He was fixing his own problems. Maybe he was trying to impress the boss. But they can certainly attack his credibility, which there's plenty of material for them to attack it with. So this is their chance.
And let's not forget, Jeremy, Michael Cohen dealing with his own legal woes as it relates to the former president. So I'm guessing he will be very particular with what he says so he doesn't incriminate himself on any of the other charges that he's currently facing.
Potentially. I mean, and Michael Cohen is a guy who in the legal profession, we call a guy like this judgment proof, right? Which is to say that this guy doesn't have a lot to lose. Okay. Now, he doesn't want to go to prison again. And he may be, I'm sure he'll be asked questions that could potentially get him into some more hot water. I am certain as the day long, he has been prepped by the Manhattan DA's office before he takes the witness stand. And I'm sure by his own legal team. So this has been a long time coming. I mean, he's been out front with it. Donald Trump has obviously been very vocal about Michael Cohen. So yeah, I do think that I do think we're going to see a lot of this sort of come to a head next week. And it sort of signals really the beginning of the end. I think we saw was this week, right? Stormy Daniels was a witness. She took the witness stand. A lot of fireworks there, too. I guess the executives for the whole show in New York decided ratings were down, so they needed to inject some sex into the equation. That typically gets people's blood pumping more than accountants and CPAs does. So that was kind of the transition, if you will, into Michael Cohen, and he's the main event.
Jeremy, I always appreciate your candidness and expertise on these topics. And you're right. We were seeing that Trump's defense attorney pretty much trying to say that Stormy Daniels was changing and altering her original story, basically trying to make her less credible, if anyone would call her credible, with this case. So you're definitely right about that. Is there anything else that myself and the viewers need to be keeping a close eye on as all of this is unfolding? And again, as we are keeping a close eye and watch towards Monday.
So, Gina, a question that I've gotten a few times, and it's a really interesting one, and I think it's good that we're talking about these things because, I mean, talking about this case and talking to the public, talking to folks who may not deal with the court system every day, talking about the attorney-client privilege, because again, Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's lawyer, and so a good way to think of the attorney-client privilege is in a criminal context is you have to think of it in past tense versus future tense. Past tense, if somebody comes into a lawyer and says, I did X, Y, and Z, it could be anything from shoplifting to capital murder. That's typically going to be privileged. In almost all circumstances, it's going to be privileged. Things that are future tense or going into the future are in most ways potentially not always privileged, right? If somebody comes to a lawyer's office and says, Jeremy, how do I dispose of stolen goods? Or Jeremy, somebody has killed, I've killed somebody. What do I do with the body? Well, lawyers can't answer those questions because then they're partaking in the crime. So there's what's called a crime fraud exception to the attorney-client privilege. And that's what the DA's office in Manhattan is saying with Michael Cohen. Look, Michael Cohen was doing things future tense that he was a part of the crime. Now, you have to sort of get into those facts, and then a judge or a jury gets to decide, okay, this was not privileged because this person was involved in the crime. So I think that's a really fascinating topic that I'm glad that folks are talking about, because ultimately, as a lawyer, I think it's important that people know what lawyers are here for, what we do, what we don't do, and ultimately we want people to go out and seek legal representation if they need it. And that's why the attorney-client privilege is there.
So glad you brought that up, Jeremy. And it also raises another question. So, as people might confess something to their attorney, because obviously you'd rather them tell you behind closed doors than something come out in the middle of evidence or discovery, and you're like, hey, why didn't you tell me this up front? Could anything be used against Michael Cohen when he was Trump's attorney? Because as you know, there is that attorney-client privilege that you mentioned. So anything that the former President Trump might have said to him, that's not allowed to be used against him now, correct?
That's a great question. Potentially, the attorney-client privilege belongs to the client, which in this instance would be Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is the gatekeeper for such things. Now, anytime you have a confrontational situation, for instance, like a malpractice lawsuit, that will have the effect of waiving that privilege. I don't know that that's happened here. So it's possible that there are things that Michael Cohen knows about Donald Trump, which Michael Cohen might not be allowed to testify about. And sometimes that's a reason why the judge might kick the jury out of the room and says, okay, let's go back to chambers. And then the judge might say, okay, what are you about to say, Mr. Cohen? Tell me. And then I'll decide whether or not there's a privilege here and whether or not we can go into this. That's possible. I think it's very unlikely. I don't know that if Donald Trump has confessed something to his lawyer, Michael Cohen, that could absolutely ruin this trial and cause a mistrial. I think the judge is going to say, all right, this sounds personal. Everybody, let's keep this to yourselves. It has nothing to do with the allegations here. But that's something that's probably in the back of, I think, Trump's mind, Trump's lawyer's mind, and probably Michael Cohen's, and probably the back of his mind too.
Absolutely. And because of that, Jeremy, what you're saying, that I think the phrase I don't recall and I don't remember might be used a lot, just so people can say, well, I'm not lying, but I'm also not going to say anything that could incriminate myself in this process. Would you say that's the phrase that is used during these times?
Gina, you speak like a true experienced trial lawyer. So
hey, I might be. I'm just playing, but yeah, I hear it all the time. And it's a smart phrase to use. That way, you can't be used in contempt or any of those things that could happen.
And look, if you don't remember, you don't remember. And one of the things that you tell people who are testifying is you say, look, don't guess, okay? If you don't remember, that's an okay answer. And not remembering might not look wonderful to the jury, but it's better than lying. And it's better than guessing at something and then getting drilled about it on cross-examination. So absolutely, I don't remember, I don't recall. Those answers are fine. If you know, preferably, I'd like my client to kind of or somebody who I'm calling to not say I don't recall, sort of like a robot, because that sort of, like you're saying, kind of screams out, right? That's a little rehearsed. But yes, it's just fine if that's the truth.
Jeremy, always a pleasure. Is there anything else you'd like to add before I let you go?
No, just like Terrell Owens said, Dallas Cowboy legend, get your popcorn ready. It's going to be a fun week next week.
My goodness, you just had to add the Cowboys into this. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. It won't be the last time. We'll be checking in with you soon. You enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.